Hello, and on this episode, I'm here with Witek Radomski of Enjin Coin. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
So, could you tell me a little bit about the problem that Enjin Coin is trying to solve?
Sure. We're trying to give gamers and game developers this tool that gives them actual ownership of items. When people are playing games, they pick up all sorts of items, and currently these items, once you stop playing the game, or if various things happen in the game, let's say your account gets banned, these items are lost. They're not really owned by you. So we want to give gamers and developers the ability to create these real physicalized kind of items and have real control over them and actually give them some kind of intrinsic value.
Okay, and so how are you solving that problem? Is it you're using the blockchain for this?
Yeah, so we created this massive set of tools, like a wallet, SDKs, and a bunch of tools that the game developers can use to create items that work according to the rules they want. So certain kind of items can be locked to a player's account, like a cursed amulet. And there's tools for making craftable or consumable items. And so this whole set of tools lets game developers build their game just like they're building their regular game, and then actually have blockchain tokens as their items. And then players get a wallet, and they can actually see those items pop up in their wallet just as if it's like an inventory in any video game. And they can trade with each other. They can put the items on websites and do things with them. So it's a really cool set of tools to make these items real and ownable by players. And another cool thing we're doing is with Enjin Coin. Enjin Coin's a currency, and you can actually infuse the currency into these items. So if you had something like a sword in a game, that sword would have some value in Enjin Coin. It's like its material value, as if it's made out of, metal, some kind of real metal. And you're able to melt down any of the items and receive Enjin Coin back. So that actually makes them liquid. And in case anything happens with the game, or the item gets nerfed or something like that, you still have a way to liquefy that item.
Okay, so if I was playing a game and I just decided that I didn't like it anymore, I could kind of liquidate my assets?
Yeah, I mean, normally you would want to sell the item. Usually the items are useful for something in the game, but you'd probably get more money that way. But you could, if something happens, let's say the developer just says, we're shutting down all the servers, the game's not going to function anymore. All the gamers could just melt down all their items and still receive some currency back, which is pretty cool.
Well, definitely would give people more confidence in buying these virtual items.
Yeah. Like when you're getting into a game, you don't know, like it might be a small indie game, and you're not sure how long it'll last or if it's going to be a success. So that actually gives people that confidence of like, okay, I can invest in these items, and if the game succeeds, that's awesome. If it has some trouble, then I still have another way out, right?
And could this be used as an in-game currency?
Yeah, it can be used as an in-game currency. The way that we're thinking people will do it though is create like their own kind of gold tokens in the game or things like that using our platform. But yeah, you can definitely use Enjin Coin just as freely inside the games to buy things. There's actually a really cool trading system we're building that you can do like an atomic swap of let's say 100 Enjin Coin for a whole batch of items with somebody. Let's say you're buying some items. So you can do like a nice atomic swap between Enjin Coin and items. And that happens all on chain. So there's no way of getting scammed.
So what have been some of the challenges of trying to solve this problem? How have the game developers reacted?
Actually, game developers are loving this. I think game developers don't really want to, like traditional mainstream game developers, that's who we're targeting. And they don't really want to invest in blockchain, like a whole team of developers to build blockchain. Most game developers are just building their games. So they really appreciate that there's this toolkit that's going to be ready for them, and they can just pop it into their game. And within, a few days, even have blockchain in their game. But we've had some issues. Like when we first started developing this, the main tokens on Ethereum, actually in the very beginning, everyone uses ERC20 tokens, but those are sort of made for cryptocurrency like things like they're made for just fungible tokens, and it's really hard to deal with in games. And then ERC 721 came out, and that's made for like CryptoKitties, for example, individual non-fungible things. But we didn't see a format that would work for the type of items mainstream games would need. So we released a token standard called ERC 1155. And it's basically the standard that lets you define all game items in one big smart contract. And it just makes it really easy to work with game items. So if you have a game like World of Warcraft with 100,000 different kinds of items, it'd be a lot easier to make it with our new token standard than with the previous ones. So yeah, we had to do quite a bit of work and development on that. But now that we released it, we got a ton of good feedback, and I think it's going to be a success.
And are you using Ethereum as your blockchain?
Yes, we're using Ethereum.
And does this system help at all with some of the inflation issues with some items?
Well, when you define an item, when you create an item on our platform, you can define what way it inflates or deflates, or if it's a fixed supply. So, for example, you can say that I'm going to make a gold pieces currency, or maybe let's use something else. I'm going to make, what's a good example here? I'm going to make some kind of weapon, some kind of gun, and I'm only going to allow 100 more copies of this gun to be released every year. So you start off with, let's say, 5,000 guns, and then 100 more come out every year. And there can never be more than that limit that you define. So you can, as the game designer, you can create your own game economies based on these rules that you set up.
Oh, very interesting. So it would give you, once again, more confidence in being able to buy when it says it's a limited edition, like some limited edition sword, that there really are a limited edition of it, or limited number.
Yeah, it's literally in the contract. It's contract is law in these cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So you can actually see it in the wallet. You open the item up on your wallet and you can look at all the info and you can say, okay, there's never going to be more than, let's say, 25 of these super rare items ever. Or this one's going to increase by this amount every year. Or there's even a deflating one where if the item gets destroyed, it'll never come back.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. That'd be very interesting. So is this system also, I've seen other people talk about being able to transfer items between games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's actually, we've actually created the first practical multiverse. We've got 7 game developers on board already that are actually using the same sets of items in between all the games. Actually, they still have their own items, but they have this sort of core set of multiverse items. So if you get this special, sword, or if you get this special hammer, for example, you can take it into all these 7 games, and it'll appear in that game style. So in like the Pixel, and there's this game called Forest Knight, which is this like 2D RPG type of game, and that one, it shows up as like a pixelated little hammer. And then if you go into 9 Lives, which is the super 3D, super detailed 1-versus-1 combat game, then it turns into this crazy Viking hammer, right?
So the system is operational now?
We actually have all the contracts live, and we have a bunch of game developers developing on it right now. We have our wallet out, but the games are still in development. So you still can't play any games, but they're going to come out pretty soon.
And so for those developers, do you have like an SDK for them?
Yes. So we actually partnered with Unity. They're basically the biggest game development engine. And we made an SDK that lets you both use, raw code to access this stuff, or have a visual interface that you can go and you can see your whole list of items you've ever minted. You can mint new items just using a wizard kind of interface. So for game developers, or even just like a game designer who wants to add some blockchain items, they can go in there without any programming knowledge. They can create all their items. They can give it to their programmer, and the programmer can integrate all that into their game.
Well, that's really cool. I don't think people really realize with game development how a lot of stuff is reused. Like those game engines are reused for a lot of games, and they really depend on SDKs and products like what you're developing to make those games happen.
Yeah. Like Unity, you can basically make a whole game out of just downloading assets from the asset store. You can even download the 3D art. You can download all the different functionalities, physics, and all these things, put them together into your game. So this is the blockchain aspect. You can pop that into your game and just create all the items you want, and it's done.
So are there any other significant issues and challenges of developing this?
Yeah, so one thing we found is with the system in the way that it's out right now, it's on the Ethereum main chain. And that means it's good for things like you bought some items from the game developer, you get them onto your account, and now you can use them. That's cool. But if you want to start doing really complex, high-frequency transactions, like a game where you're, let's say, a space trader and you're trading all sorts of blockchain items like every minute, that can start getting expensive because of Ethereum's gas fees. So we started developing this platform called Efinity, which is a scaling system. We haven't released too much info on it yet, but within the next 2 months, we're going to start having some beta type of versions to show. And it'll basically, our goal is to make transactions as close as possible to free and extremely fast. So we were doing some benchmarks. We were able, so far right now, we've been playing with around 200 transactions per second. And that's a lot faster than Ethereum. And so that's going to run as a side chain, but it's still going to be linked to the Ethereum mainnet. So you're still going to have all the same security that you have with the Ethereum blockchain, but you can start doing these massive transactions. I mean, one of our goals, it's still not quite there, but if you could take bullets that are tokenized and put them into a machine gun and shoot them, and each bullet is like a token going out, that would be really cool.
Oh yeah, that would be very interesting. And so how have players reacted? Is there a lot of interest in the gaming community?
Well, right now we've been targeting the game developers, but I think there's a lot of people itching to play these games. I mean, we've seen some great success with our first developers that announced games. War of Crypto was our first announced game, and they sold out within a few hours from the pre-sale items they were selling. And 9 Lives is that 1v1 sort of permadeath, really brutal Viking battle game. And they had a Kickstarter just a few days ago, and they sold out in 24 hours. Or they didn't sell out, actually. It's still running, but they reached their goal in 24 hours, which is pretty amazing.
So there's a lot of demand. I memean, people are so connected to their characters that having them have actual ownership over those swords and that armor could be really cool.
Well, yeah, that is something that's never really been experienced in gaming, in real mainstream gaming. You've always felt like, okay, I'm getting all this stuff. Like you're going into like a game, you're picking up all this, all these items. But once you stop playing the game, it just sort of disappears in your mind and in what you feel. But now when you have these items in your wallet, you're going to feel this connection, like, oh, like check this out. I got this epic item. I can go trade it outside of the game. It's like you actually have these things. And I think as the world gets more tokenized with blockchain, as blockchain keeps like going to every part of society, this is going to be something people want.
Seems like there might be also a way for the game developers to kind of police some of the item trading in the game.
So there's some tools we built in. So you don't have to do this, but as a game developer, you can enforce that items are traded through some certain smart contracts. For example, if you make them locked down to a person's account, then you can say you can only trade them through this exchange. Or a little bit more freeing is if the game developer charges like a small transaction fee per each trade. So you can charge maybe 2% for every trade that happens. And maybe that can give them some revenue that they currently don't get with gray market trading. And
so what are some of your plans for the future for this project?
Well, right now we're just going crazy, talking to every game developer, trying to get more people on board, because we think the real future is projects in blockchain that get adopted, that get used by millions of people. So we're just getting as many games on as possible, and we have a lot of awesome games. And we're just going to continue to add some more cool features. We're going to mess around with, things like random number generation for those kind of games that need it, that need verified random numbers. We're going to mess around with more kind of on-chain logic, smart contract enforced game logic and things like that. But we just want to keep developing all our tools so that when someone pops into a game, like, you think of a gamer, someone comes home from work or from school, they sit down on their couch, they want to play a game. They don't want to mess around with complicated blockchain stuff. So our real goal is just to make it as seamless as possible. So it'll just feel like you're not even using blockchain. You're just, things are all going to work for you. And then when you need to access those items, you're going to have that access.
That's very interesting because it might be some people's very first interaction with the blockchain.
Exactly. So we're trying to, our long-term goals are just to make it as absolutely invisible as possible, but still you have all that security.
Well, it sounds like a really awesome project. Is there anything that I should have asked you that maybe I missed?
No, I mean, we're building all sorts of cool tools. I mean, I think that there's a lot of cool gameplay types that have never been explored before that this technology allows. Like in the future, I can see game developers building games that, let's say, players can mint their own tokens. Maybe players like who play in clans can start minting their own like dog tag system, like, oh, I killed you, I get your dog tag type of thing. Maybe players will transfer tokens to each other. Maybe game developers who do mobile stuff can start adding geolocation into their tokens, and you can run around the real world and find tokens, and they're either like actual NPCs in the real world that drop crypto, or they're things you can pick up in the real world, like Pokemon Go style. That's some really cool stuff. And you can also do a lot of crazy things with blockchain, like give actual computers cryptocurrency or blockchain items and have them own those items. So I see some in the distant future, maybe 5 years down the line, I see people building games that have actual NPCs that own crypto, and you're going to have to solve their puzzles to actually get it. And no one can control those.
Oh, interesting. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a really cool project. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing it with us.
It was a total pleasure.
You are a podcast listener and you're interested in crypto. Otherwise, why would you be listening to this show, right? Have you tried looking for new crypto and blockchain podcasts to listen to? If you've used Google, then you've probably found a whole bunch of clickbait articles. Top 10 lists that just list the same podcasts over and over again. And most of those podcasts aren't even active anymore. If you use iTunes, then you probably got a whole bunch of irrelevant results. The iTunes search function is absolutely awful. It's kind of like using Alta Vista in the 1990s. Keyword stuffing has made it almost unusable. So I made a site to fix this problem. Just go to crypto.podcastlist.net. On the site, you'll find a comprehensive list of all the active podcasts covering the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and other decentralization technologies. This is not a curated list of my favorite shows. This list is intended to be complete. I want to list every single show that's focused on this industry. I've got about 75 active shows on the list already. Please let me know if I've missed any shows. This list is also covered by a Creative Commons license, so feel free to reuse it and share it. Check out crypto.podcastlist.net if you are looking for new crypto and blockchain podcasts. And if you have your own show, please check and make sure you are listed. Once again, the site is crypto.podcastlist.net. Please check it out and tell me what you think.